Hey guys, it's an election season. St. George City elections are the most important thing. We want you to go to votestg.com and find out who's running and what they stand for. See us all over Southern Utah in our voter information booth. We'll be at Digby's Market, Red Rock Bicycles, and the park. We'll see you out there. Thanks for tuning in to the 435 podcast. I'm Robert McFarland. I just finished up with Paula Smith. Thanks for being on the show. This is a great episode with an in-the-running candidate, Paula Smith, for St. George City Council. We talked about budget. We talked about public safety. We talked about development and her stances on those. You can check out her website, paulasmithcitycouncil.com, paulasmithcitycouncil.com. If you want to know all of the candidates, go to votestg.com. It has a list of the candidates and their positions on water, development, economic, all the important topics. We hope you enjoy the episode and have a good one out there. We'll see you. The first question I've kind of started with, I'm not as organized as I probably should be.
Me either.
So why are you running for city council? Truthfully, why would you do that to yourself?
I think I might be looking for a midlife crisis.
You're like trying to find one?
Yeah.
I
enjoy stress. Truthfully, I feel like, and I know this is a saying, but and then it's been more popular lately as far as, if not me, who? Mm-hmm. And if not now, then when? Mm-hmm. And, I feel like there should always be some level of service to the community, whatever capacity. My kids were growing up and I was really involved in their schools. Mm-hmm. And sort of not
well done, by the way. A lot of people don't.
Yeah. So that was important to me as they were getting older. And then, they're young adults now. And so I was trying to locate my purpose. And while I still love my job, I always look for more something in life, mm-hmm. whatever it may be. And the property taxes have been my battle for probably 10 years. Mm-hmm. Right around this time, I start getting fired up again. And so it started last year when the city was trying to increase the property taxes to pay public safety. Mm-hmm. I got more involved in that moment, and a couple of groups came to me asking if I would run for city council. And of course, my answer was no thanks. And I kept pushing them off, and they kept coming and, encouraging. And then, I started to redirect my focus and realizing that saying, well, I'll just wait and see who steps up and get behind them. Mm-hmm. And then, I just sort of decided it has to be me because I'm going to give it everything I've got, and I don't do anything at 40% or 80%. And it's a good trait and a bad trait to have, but that's why I decided, this is my moment to learn something new and totally immerse myself and serve the community. Mm-hmm. And maybe
let's go back 10 years. Well, first, I want to know. You said your kids are young adults. How many kids do you have?
2. One is 18, the other is almost 21.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So they're just right on that. They're finally out of the house. And
no.
Like, what do I do?
No, I built an ADU in the backyard, so they're never leaving. They'll never leave.
Way to go. An ADU. That's a good move by the city. Yeah. So going back 10 years, it's been your battle for 10 years. Take me through. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
The property taxes. I don't like and I don't approve of the structure that the current property tax system in Utah, and it's a state thing, it's not a city thing. So I've constantly emailed our, government and representatives and whoever will respond to say, we need to change the system. And they are usually pointing, well, so-and-so is working on it, or this guy's, but nothing ever changes. And the problem is, our property values are based on valuation. Mm-hmm. So if you buy a house for $300,000 and then 10 years later now it's worth $900,000, mm-hmm. your taxes are significantly higher.
Right.
And that's a
even
problem.
though potentially your income doesn't change
Your
and
income
your
doesn't-
ability
yeah.
your ability to afford that house didn't change because you get a 30-year fixed mortgage.
Right.
It means it's a fixed payment.
Yeah.
The value might go up and down, but we never realize the value until we sell it, right?
Right. Or
So it's an imaginary number.
right.
and
Unrealized gains.
and you're getting taxed on unrealized gains.
Yes.
That sounds odd.
And here's the other thing, and I've gone back and forth with the county, and you know, I really appreciate them. I'm not trying to put them down.
The people from the county. Let's talk about like who. What do you
Tom
mean?
Durant is the assessor, and he and I have had a lot of conversations. You know, a lot of stuff is beyond his control, what he can do, and you know, so it's a state problem. But the problem becomes those unrealized gains, and it's sort of a discriminating practice. For instance, this year, and I haven't spot checked a lot of neighborhoods because I've sort of been busy, but
I saw a post you said, hey, if you get yours, send me yours so I can just look at it. I just want to know this one.
That's specific for another group that's looking at the school thing. So
Okay.
I was just trying to help.
On the school. Okay.
That's
got it.
regarding the school on that particular post. But so last year I did a lot of checking, and this year I just did a couple of spot checks, and I'll get into it further because I'm going to inundate their office with people.
Well, yeah, and
disputing.
this week, I think, or like over the last week or so, everybody's been getting their tax notices. Yep.
So I did a few checks. Now, my street, at least the few that I checked, including my own property, went up $200,000 in value.
Right. And then they do it on a zone basis, right? Like they kind of like rotate around, sort of.
But see, how is that fair? The house behind the few homes behind me that I checked went up like 50,000. Another areas in like Bloomington and a couple of other spot checks I did went down.
Yeah.
So who decides where the property values go up and where they go down? Wouldn't it be across the board? Why isn't it across the board? Why isn't it just a set amount, 0.5%, 1%, a cap? So mine can go up 10%, 20% in 1 year. The neighbor across town, St. George still, might go down. Great for him, but there's just an imbalance, and there needs to be a cap.
Yeah.
How can you ever make the most expensive purchase you're ever going to make? And, you know, you're in real estate like I am, and we sell a house. What's their first question, especially the younger buyers? How much is the payment going to be?
Right.
Our true answer is, well, this year it's X amount. Well, what's it going to be next year? I don't know.
Yeah.
More, probably. How much more? I don't know.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah.
Who would do that?
Right.
When you buy a car, you want to know, how much is the payment going to be? Here's your payment.
Right.
There's no cap that says it's only going to go up $100 or $50 or this percentage. So how can anybody budget, prepare, save? How are our seniors supposed to age in place when they're on fixed income, usually just Social Security? My neighbor across the street, he's retired.
Well, how would, because I know there's a 40+% discount for being a primary residence.
45 exemption, right?
45% exemption. So when you're talking to the people that you've talked to, because what it sounded like is the unrealized gains, taxation on unrealized gains was really what a fundamental issue is. And then now, but we're as they change the property values, this is further down the line, right? Like this is accepting the fact that this is a reality. So maybe we're trying to unravel from the end backwards, or is your stance we should relook at how do we do property taxes
restructure
at the full beginning? And then who do you think is it the state legislature that has to go through that process?
Yeah, it has to be a change.
Or is it the county?
No,
the county
state has to change it.
The state has to change it. So that comes into our state Congress and our state senators and that conversation with them.
Correct.
So, as you fight this battle and as you have these, these different perspectives, right, on what's fair and what's not, coming up with solutions, right?
Right.
It seems like there's a lot of idea people out there.
Yeah.
But then like the solution, if you were to write or wave your magic wand, where do you think, how would you say the structure should be on the property taxes?
I have it listed, some ideas, and whether they're...
Oh yeah, let's tell everybody the website, paulasmithcitycouncil.com.
Correct.
You got a lot of good stuff on here, including your stance on a pretty comprehensive stance on pretty much everything, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I have ideas on the property tax page, and whether they're the right ideas or some ideas, I'm not sold 100%.
It's like it's got to be this way,
Right.
or
These
nothing.
are just suggestions that I have.
Yeah.
I think the tax rate needs to be based on your purchase price,
Okay.
like everything
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
except for houses. It's the weirdest thing. So it should be based on the purchase price. And there needs to be a cap on how much, yes, if values are going up, it can raise, but there should be a cap on what that is. So those are my biggest things, that you're taxed based on the purchase price, and anytime there are gains, it would be capped, 1%, 3%, whatever that magic number is, just so we can know in advance, okay, I know values are going up. I'm going to have to pay 3% higher in taxes.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe because of that property value going up, maybe there's a separate tax upon a sale.
See, now they are working on, and that might, there's something in the works on, they're trying to not allow a, and I'm drawing a blank on what that's called.
That's okay.
When you sell the tax.
Capital gains.
Not
type.
capital gains. It's, I thought I addressed it. I can't think of the word at the moment, but
That's okay. It'll come to you.
they're putting something in effect so you can't be taxed on the difference between what you were assessed at and what your sale price is. That was an idea. They do it in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an idea that, it could be something. I don't know. Is it the right idea? I don't know.
Because I would imagine if the property taxes can go up and also go down, right? There's going to be an error for, hey, we're changing as the market's changing, and as the tax base goes, it's tough to plan out when you have a $519 million budget that you're trying to project out for a population of over 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. I can see how they're like, we need to get some stability in a tax base.
Yeah.
And I talked to Danielle Larkin a little bit about that, just trying to understand, what's our requirement? What's the income that we have to maintain what we do have? Plus, there's going to be pluses and minuses when taxes come and go, when it's sales tax,
right.
They're transitory taxes, right?
Right.
So I can see how, when property taxes go up, they also have the opportunity to go down. And if you only levy the tax upon a sale, then somebody might just never sell, right? And so you can't really functionally come up with a projected, income coming from those sales base. So I guess that kind of makes sense why they've moved it to every year. You got some money that it's being taxed on at a lower percentage, but
yeah, I don't know that mine have ever gone down. It's always gone up, which I understand the city needs to count on that money, and I'm good with that. But the problem I have is the unknown on how much higher it's going to go.
Yeah, a cap on it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, that can really hurt somebody. Mine went up $500 this year.
Yeah.
If I was on a fixed income, how would I do that?
Right.
And I'm being taxed on a house, more than double what I even paid, almost triple.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just
and that was a problem they faced in California, right? Where
Prop 13.
the Prop 13, where they set a cap on, hey, you're getting taxed on I think on their original purchase, and then at a certain point they drew the line and say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. If you sell the property, but anything new that gets sold, but property values just exploded, and people couldn't afford it. You're like, I legitimately can't even afford the house that I bought 35 years ago because the taxes are so extreme,
right,
that I have to move or I have to go get a job.
Prop 13 was about the only thing California has done right. And a lot of my ideas are elements from Prop 13. Mm-hmm. The creator, or the, instigator, if you will, of that bill was Howard Jarvis, who is from Utah.
Interesting.
So when I mention Prop 13, I get a lot of pushback because they see it as something from California. So I try to push the notion that we're just bringing it back to Utah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Prop 13, wasn't there a clause in there with golf courses?
I don't No,
I
I don't think so.
I think I read an article that in the Prop 13 was an exemption. The only property exempted was golf courses.
I'm not aware of that. If that's the
I'm
case,
gonna look that up and fact check it, because I was in a conversation about golf courses, and I've seen you've got a position on golf courses, and I kind of play the both sides of the fence on the golf courses because I could see the pros and cons of each side.
Yes.
But I do know for sure that the tax rate on golf courses is fixed, which causes the value of those courses to have skyrocketed. And you basically have venture capital firms and huge, large corporations that own all these golf courses. Now, there's a lot of protections for locals to use the courses so it stays affordable, but they've created these country clubs that are, uber exclusive and elite. And part of it was, this idea that it was a recreation for wealthy people, right? And they wanted to continue to keep that. And you have these gated communities wrapped around these golf courses. And that was a sidebar. Just I was thinking about, I think Prop 13 is actually where they gave those golf courses protection. But to your point, fixing it on the original purchase price, and then
capping the increase.
Yeah. So, but either way, though, it still has continued to go up, at a high level because the values across the board, even for small, homes.
But it's not fair to the people that didn't sell, because several homes on my street, they sold their home, doubled their money, cashed out, and left.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm penalized for what they sold for.
Mm.
If nobody in my neighborhood would, sold, it wouldn't go up.
Right.
So the people that stay are penalized for the people that cashed out.
Yeah.
That system is broken.
Yeah, that doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
So it started with property taxes. It started with taxes. And then, so what have you learned throughout, at least from the candidacy up till this point, where do you feel like you've grown in understanding? You're like, hey, this is another thing that I think could be fixed, or this is another part of the current city council, like, because property tax is not necessarily something you can impact at the city council level, but where do you feel like you can influence? What can you influence?
The property taxes are kind of a background. They are talking about raising again next year. So I am assuming they're going to do it through the truth in taxation as they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it will become an issue with the city council when they come next year to attempt to raise it again.
Right.
For public safety, which they've already gone on record indicating that they have. So it is part of it. It's not at all complete. There is so much to learn, and I am not going to say I know it all, because I don't. There's been 100 things each day, to learn and understand. But there's a lot of ordinances, I think, that are questionable and wreaking havoc through the city, and a lot of those are going to have to be addressed. I think, that was probably something more important. I was more fixated on the budget. The budget's sort of my thing. But all of these things play into factor too, and I think they're critical, and there's, a huge, endless knowledge there. So I'm glad that we have a lot of people on the city that, provide a ton of information. It's harder for me on this public side. The city council members have direct access to all of them to ask all of these questions. So I've been trying to solve a lot of things just on the public side.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to learn, and I learn things every day.
Yeah. What do you think would be the top, what do you think the top three, most important issues are to you? If you were to put three issues in there as like, hey, this is really important, I think, to the community and to St. George in general. Do you have an idea?
So public safety needs to be a priority. Of course, they've shifted, and now the city is on board with it being more of a priority than they had it, say, last year. I think it's critical, public safety. I think not only is it a priority, but it needs to be number one on the budget. And also, not just promising them funds or allocating them funds, but following through and making sure those funds got to where they needed to be in the hands of the correct departments, hiring the right officers, retaining the right officers, getting the equipment for fire. So I think that it's critical, and it has to be number one on the budget, because if we don't maintain and recruit and have our law people and public safety, we're going to fall. Like nothing else will matter. So it is more critical, and I think it should be addressed first.
Okay.
So the next thing would, some ordinances. Those are obviously wreaking some havoc through the city.
Maybe what's one that jumps out to you that you're like, this doesn't make any sense?
Well, there's a ton. So, building.
You can rattle them all off.
Yeah.
You can tell me all of them.
And when I'm on the spot, I'll have trouble thinking of them all.
That's okay.
So building, I think, is something that needs to be addressed too.
Building or zoning? What do you mean?
Kind of both, because there's so much red tape from point A to point B when a developer or a builder wants to do something.
We see it firsthand as realtors.
It's a long process, and it can make or break projects, as it has already done in the past.
Yep.
So I think there needs to be some red tape that's removed. And I do think they need to work on they are allowing ADUs. I don't know about every area, and certain properties can and can't do it.
They have some they have some unique requirements and rules around those ADUs, but
I think that should be a little bit loosened up, because I think that would have helped, because so many people are just looking for something. I have family that just needs a place for a month, or my kids, retirees, or your parents, that need to come back. I think that would open up a lot for people to do that. So there's a state, I can't remember now if it's Washington or Oregon. I think it's Washington, and they have ADUs through the city that are Streamline approvals. They already have the blueprints, and they have a lot of choices. So it's not like you have to just pick one that you don't like. They have 2-story, single level, front facing, narrow lot, lots of options. And you can pick those, and they have one designated person that streamlines that. So when you pick it, you already have the plans. They have a list of builders that are willing to do that. You go through the city, you're stamped, as long as, you're going to.
It's kind of like a fast track. It's like a fast track for specific, commonly requested, building requests.
So
That's interesting. That's unique. I like that.
We should do something like that. HOAs do that. If you're going to pick this color or that color, you just kind of get a quick stamp of approval. I think that would alleviate a lot of red tape and city work.
Yeah. I had Stacy Young on. He's a land use attorney. He's Southern Utah Home Builders Association. He talked about, Euclidean zoning and how we've basically, set this really difficult map to follow for a developer, right? Whether it's residential or whether it's commercial, it's a really difficult map to decide, okay, this particular parcel, because it's sliced up all the way down to the parcel. And in St. George downtown, it's down to the street, right? They have the RCC zone layover and a historical zone. I think there's so many, if you really dive into it, it's so complex, especially with the older parts of St. George. Like, hey, this is this zone here, and they changed the wording, but this zone and this zone are almost identical, but there's this one small little change, right? It's very complex and confusing. And so, he talked about trying to work with the city and cleaning that up and simplifying what the zone codes are and what's allowed and what's not allowed. It just doesn't seem like, from my perspective, it doesn't seem like it's something that's a priority to follow through with. So I agree with you that does seem like there's a lot of red tape that could be loosened up. But what that would then cause is faster development and faster growth. And I would say, at least from the people I've listened to or heard and seen on Facebook, is that a big majority of St. George feels like we're moving too fast, that the development and the growth is too fast. So this would make it just faster, right? And I think that's concerning to a lot of people. What do you say to that?
Yes. I don't know about faster across the board. I agree with that. I don't think we need to just build as quickly as possible. My idea of eliminating the red tape is the things, like ADUs and things that people want to do on their private property. I think there should be more streamlined. For the bigger developments, I think we need to approach it more strategically. I think it's kind of a free-for-all. The city has in their, the way they collect tax, it's kind of a conflict of interest because the way they make money is on new development. Mm-hmm. So the city needs to make money, so they're just going to build, but the people living here are like, we don't want that anymore. So I think that structure needs to change a little bit, and that involves the taxes.
Yeah.
Because the city wants everything to be built because that's how they're going to get their money.
Walk me through though. Because if I'm a city council member and at a certain level, they're like, hey, this is the people that have requested to come in and talk about this land that they want to develop.
Right. So
they hear each individual, it's not like they're going after developers and saying, hey, will you come into the city council and get this approved, right? It is more of a private property owner walks in, says, hey, I want to do this, or a prospective, and they go to the, planning commission first, and then they come to the city council. So that planning commission seems like it's that first step. So, is it necessarily their incentive to approve that, or is it they're just taking the files as they show up and then just moving it along and whatever shows up as long as it fits into a criteria? I'm having a hard time seeing, like, if I'm sitting in the position, how would I slow it down? It doesn't seem like it seems like it'd be almost impossible to slow it down unless you're saying, this is 10 feet higher than it's supposed to be based on this city code, right? Which I've seen happen, right? Developments get delayed for seemingly arbitrary reasons.
Yeah.
That's the only way to slow it down. How do we slow the growth?
I think it would be in planning and zoning and more strategic there. Mm-hmm. What's going to go where, incentivizing the developers maybe with a faster timeline. A lot of the building right now has been short-term rentals. It's exploding on our market. Now, I look back and I feel bad.
I feel bad with the city councils of old that, VRBO and Airbnb, they had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
I don't think any city was like, oh, this is a problem, right? It's just, it came on so quickly, and the ability for the internet to drive these investors to see this opportunity gap, especially in vacation resort towns, it flooded to the market. And it was almost like, I don't even know that they realized the damage that they were doing in that moment, mm-hmm. right? I don't know if they could necessarily have predicted mm-hmm. that we have as many as we have, right? Mm-hmm. So I almost want to give them a pass and be like, I don't think anybody knew what we were getting into when it first started. But how do we stop it, and how do we fix it now?
I think they're just definitely overtaking the market. Mm-hmm. I think we're good there. So I think we need to focus more on the other options, single family, townhomes, where our residents can live. Mm-hmm. Because they're still going with the short-term rentals, but that's been part of the problem for people looking even just to rent. There's nothing available. Mm-hmm. I think if some of those short-term rentals were just, typical single family or residential use, that would add more to the inventory.
It seems tough too, because let's say, because you and I both know that if it's a vacation resort zone, there's a clear market premium that buyers were paying for those things. And there's a couple of areas, specifically Sand Hollow being one, that there's this promise of profit at the end. And they think, oh, I'm going to go get this vacation rental. And then they realize, oh, this isn't making any money. There's no money to be made here. And it's actually costing me way more than I thought. And then they go to resell it. Mm-hmm. And the resale value has actually come down especially over the last 12 months for sure.
Yeah. But they exploded out there.
They exploded. They did explode. And with, in my mind, no proof of concept. There was no proof that those things were going to actually make money for the value, the sticker price that they paid for it, right? If you run at a cap rate or you run...
They never really,
Some did. Some do.
Some do, but not only if the cash buyers. And that was always
That's
my
true.
question. When they call, I get calls. I'm like, all right,
All the
somebody
time.
must have put out a report because I want to buy a vacation rental. I'm like, okay, first question, are you paying cash?
Yeah.
No. Do you want to make money? Yes. It's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Cash buyers are doing pretty good, especially when those interest rates were lower.
And specific types, right? Like Paradise Village,
Right.
like these resort specific where it's like, hey, this is a vacation spot. And so
Right.
you get these big families that's got,
Right.
sleeps 28 people and all that stuff,
Yeah.
like those seem to have been doing well. Or you go to the small, like Sports Village, Las Palmas, where it's 1 bed, 2 bed.
Yeah. More like a hotel.
More like a hotel. Like those seem to have made sense. But then we have like these neighborhoods that are vacation rentals that I'm like, why would anybody rent that? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we, at this point, do we just put a moratorium on vacation rentals? What do you think?
I don't know how that can be accomplished. Perhaps a moratorium or just incentivizing the builders or encouraging the builders. I mean, they're going to build what they think the public wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's any more vacation rentals. So I think that
Sitla's pushing pretty hard for that property just west of Black Desert. It's technically Ivans to be 120 vacation rentals, and it's like they went to the court. The city of Ivans, the residents of Ivans, it was suing Sitla, and they just had, I think they had their hearing. The judge favored Sitla because they have a state mandate. They get to do whatever they want with the
Right.
property. They didn't have a whole lot of legal standing on doing it, but they're full blown pushing forward another 120 short-term rentals,
yeah.
adjacent to a resort area, but independent of that resort. It's a completely separate parcel. So it seems like it just keeps coming. And so I could see how residents are feeling the pressure of, is that really what we want the town to continue to turn into? And I can see how there's pushback there.
Yeah, because then you've become Sedona or Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And it's, it's just vacation and tourism. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
It does help pay the taxes, sales tax and whatnot. It does factor in. But yeah, at the cost of the communities, and there has to be a balance. I think there needs to be a balance in all of the communities so they're not overrun in particular areas.
So going back to like that, the slowing down the development, you do feel like we should probably step back and figure out a way to slow it down, thoughtfully strategize behind it.
I think, yes. I think we need to just not necessarily pause or stop. I know all of the repercussions of that.
Even if we don't have water.
Even if we don't, yeah. Yeah, so it's a hard balance, but I think we need to figure the things out first, taxes and zoning and what's needed in the community, and go those routes rather than just some free-for-all. The door's open.
Mm-hmm.
Build whatever, everywhere, anywhere, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's sort of formulate a plan. And, you can only plan so much. It's up to the builder and the property. You can't force. I'm all for the free market, what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if there's a clear plan and a proven need for something, the builders are going to build what's going to sell.
Yeah.
If they're building all of these vacation rentals and they're not selling, which I do think there's going to be an issue with that before too much longer, they're not going to want to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion. I think that we need to take a more methodical approach and make sure what we're doing instead of just going crazy. And we do have to be conscientious of the water.
So you said public safety, you said development, right? You talked about that. What else? What would be another top priority?
Let's see. Oh,
Do you want to go back on her webpage one, Blake?
yeah, the homepage.
Which one?
The homepage.
Just go to the homepage.
Oh, the city budget is huge for me.
Yep.
And transparency. Those are part of my platforms. The
Cut
most
waste, increase transparency.
Yep. That's what
And then
got
the
me
budget,
here. Digging in the budget. When I started with the property taxes, that led me to the city budget. And then I started digging in the city budget. Now, I'm not saying I have all the answers and this needs to go and this needs to go. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there's a ton of waste in there, a ton. And I think that there can be smarter decisions. And I think that our budget we're outpacing actual growth. So the number of residents that have moved in compared to where we were spending and what we're spending now, we're outpacing that in our budget. It's just exploding.
The per person spend.
Person. Yeah. Yeah. In that middle box there. In 2019, our population was 90,000 and the budget was 353 million. That's 3,900 roughly per person. Currently now it's 100,000 and that's roughly 5,000 per person. So we're outpacing, we're spending more than we're actually growing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's plenty of room in the budget to cut waste. They proved that when they did not pass that added tax, they were able to dig into the budget a little further and determine where they can pull some money for public safety. So the city budget is something I really want to dig into more than and I've spent a lot of time on it, and I have a lot of questions. My desk looks like a crime scene. I have a binder that's probably 2 or 3 inches thick of just things that I've printed and with notes and questions. And at some point, like I have to clear it and then shift, my hat. And yeah, so there's a ton of questions in there. I would really like to explore that.
You want to go to work.
I've been working. I've been digging and looking.
But you want to get to problem solving at this point rather than just picking out problems.
Questions,
So let's end. Let's because I think we're running like 40 minutes. People's attention span starts to scale back here. What are you excited about? What do you think we're doing really well? Where do you feel like we can continue to do well at?
St. George as a whole is amazing. I mean, that's why I live here. I know that's why you live here.
Yeah.
That's why everybody moves here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're doing a ton of things, if not most things, right in general. I just worry about where we're heading with the amount that we're spending and without the methodical approach in building and planning and thinking more ahead, I think is where my concern is going.
Yeah.
Public safety needs to be thrust up to the front. We need to get a handle on that, get those, people hired, retain them so we're not losing them to other cities.
Mm-hmm.
But I love our police department. They're right on key. All of our public safety is amazing. I do love our parks and trails, despite, people, I'm not for that GO bond, the GEO bond that they want to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Only because we have 50 parks and I love them all. I love them. I think I love them all. I haven't even seen them all. There's 50. So I think we can pause on that for a minute, and rather than add the bonds to pay for more parks, let's pay for public safety, because that's what we're going to be raising next year.
Yeah.
So I do love our parks. So I do love our golf courses. I think they would be better managed by not the city.
Yeah.
I think that
two of them were managed privately, because we could do another 20 minutes on this, and maybe we have you come back on and talk about golf. But 2 of them were done privately, and the city took them over because the private owner didn't have a viable business, right?
Neither does the city.
So that's a good that's a good point, right? So is it worth subsidizing in order to maintain? Bloomington is the one that jumps out to me the most. In Bloomington Hills, the St. George Country Club.
Mm-hmm.
I think St. George Country Club, right? There's Bloomington. Yeah, it's
that's different than Bloomington Hills. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So the Bloomington Country Club itself is the one that's owned by St. George. Is that wrong? I'm saying it wrong.
Bloomington Hills is owned by St. George.
Okay, Bloomington Hills is owned by St. George. So that they just redid the clubhouse, right? And they spent, I think it was like $25 million, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah,
something
I don't
like that
have the numbers
to
with me,
to redo it. And if I'm a resident living on the golf course and they give it up and it's not a viable business privately and it wasn't a viable business as a public, is it worth subsidizing so that they get to maintain this park essentially that's behind their house?
Yeah, I don't want the golf courses gone.
Yeah.
And I don't want them sold. But I do think you can lease them and still have control of them.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And, then the city's not paying employees. Employees are very expensive. It's the hugest part of the budget.
Yeah.
If you're leasing it, you have control. but not so much the expense.
The expense. You're not on the hook for that expense.
And the taxpayers are on the hook.
Yeah.
I don't want them gone, and I don't want them sold, because I don't want that. I don't want people that live on golf courses to now, like in Bloomington, where
that's good.
I'm
glad that's clear. That's clear, because that's helpful. Because I think the saying that you're not for the city owning it means you don't care about golf, or you don't care about that property in general. And I think it's a quick line to cross, and then people turn it off. They're like, oh yeah, they must hate golf courses, and they're and now you don't want to listen to it. So I appreciate you clarifying that too. I think that's helpful. Last thing, what's the last word you want to give to anybody listening? Vote for Paula Smith is for sure something they should do.
This election is critical. I think that it's a turning point, and there is a reason why there are 16 candidates running. I think it's never been more important in St. George history than this election. And I appreciate what you guys are doing and spreading the word, because most of the media has been censored, and that's an unfortunate consequence.
Yeah.
Probably on purpose, but it's important to have avenues like this, what you're doing, and spreading the word, mostly to get people out to vote.
That's it. Yep.
I think it's going to be critical, and the public, needs to vote. They need to get out there. They need to tell their neighbors to use, their power to vote and make their voice heard.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. I really want people to talk to people and spread it. And I, again, appreciate that you're doing this, because there's not very many people doing much of anything. So
it's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending the time. Good luck.
Thank you.
Primaries are September 15th.
5th.
September 5th. I did this the other day too. This is why, take what I say with a grain of salt, everybody.
Right.
Just trust me. I know I'm going to say some things wrong, but just hang with me. But thanks for coming on. Make sure you vote in the primaries. General election is what day?
That one I'm not
sure. November 21st, I believe.
think it is November 21st.
Yeah, November 21st is the general election, but the primaries are important.
Yeah.
September 5th. Tuesday, you'll get the ballot probably the last week in August. I think they get 10 days.
I think it's 15 or 20.
Okay.
I think I was expecting them to start coming around August 18th or so.
So it's coming up. It's coming up quick. You're gonna get the ballots in the mail.
Yeah.
Think about the vote before you put pen to paper.
Yeah.
And
investigate the candidates. I mean, you have some write-ups on your site, and there is I just heard this morning, they're doing a meet and greet. The Chamber of Commerce is putting that on.
Yep.
It's coming up. I think it was August 10th. I just got the email today.
We'll definitely drop it. Follow along. Wealth 435 on Instagram, Facebook, but the 435 podcast, YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast itself, podcast apps, if they're listening to it, votestg.com to get a list of the candidates and their positions, the ones that actually filled it out, that took the time to actually fill it out. Thank you for filling it out. But then if you want more information about Paula Smith, paulasmithcitycouncil.com. Right?
Yes.
Okay, guys, that's it for today. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Good luck.